CBS Sports presents Candlepin Stars and Stripes, featuring the best Candlepin bowlers from all over New England. And now in our 15th season, your hosts for Candlepin Stars and Stripes, Dick Lutz and Mike Moore.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome into another edition of Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS-TV from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Dick Lutz with Mike Moore in week 2 of our first ladder series of the new season, and we are climbing up the ladder. Last week we eliminated our number 5 seed Rich Lottie, and now number 3 seed Bob Whitcomb takes on the winner of last week's match, John Zappi. As we climb up the ladder looking at number 1, we saw a wide spread last week.
We did indeed. It was a 105-pin blowout over Rich Lottie. Now these two guys today, Bob Whitcomb and John Zappi, have actually faced each other in a roll-off following the last roll-off to get in, because they tied at was 6:59. They had a one-string match, and it was Bob Whitcomb by a 10-pin edge over John Zappi, so that's how they jockeyed into this position.
Let's meet our bowlers in this second match of our first ladder series. First, our number 4 seed, last week's winner from Quincy, Massachusetts, it's John Zappi.
John Zappi returns with a big win last week. His average these days, 124. High single coming in at 181. 479 is his high triple. And he bowls at Lucky Strike Lanes in Dorchester, Massachusetts.
And he'll be taking on our number 3 seed, and he earned that number 3 seed with a 6:59 roll-off score, as Mike mentioned. He's Bob Whitcomb from Weymouth, Massachusetts.
Yeah, about a couple of years since we've seen Bob Whitcomb, about 2.5 years or so. Average is also 124, high single 199. Bobby's high triple is 489, and these days he's at the Hanover Bowlodrome.
And these bowlers are looking for a place in our Tournament of Champions at the end of the year. That's what each ladder series winner will advance to with the big money at the end of the season. So let's get right to it. It's match number 2 of our first ladder series. It's John Zappi and Bob Whitcomb, and we're coming right back for it right after this from Leda Lanes in Nashua on WNDS-TV.
Candlepin Stars and Strikes is brought to you by the Thompson family of dealerships in Nashua, New Hampshire.
We began with 5 bowlers last week. We are now down to 4 following the elimination of Rich Lottie by John Zappi last week by a score of 400 to 295. Setting up this week's match with the number 4 seed John Zappi taking on number 3 Bob Whitcomb, and John Zappi will be first to bowl here at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire in our second match of this first ladder series of the new season. If you're just joining us, it's the 17th year of Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS-TV. John Zappi picks 1. Almost caught the head pin and made it work. Got to get Mike Morin's mic up to speed here, and we'll hear from Michael in a moment. And it's a 7 box to start out for John Zappi. He jumped out to an early lead over Rich Lottie last week and never looked back.
I just use sign language and talk into your microphone, Dick.
Just wave when you have something to say. Here's the strike for Zappi. I don't mean to get too personal, but try Listerine.
Ooh, there we are. Sorry about that.
Bob Whitcomb.
It's the 3 and the 6. And Wood that really isn't of any use to him.
And a spare to start out.
Yeah, he was pretty sick here earlier this year.
We were talking to him before, and it really sounded like he had some problems.
Back in April, apparently his appendix needed to be removed, but when they tried to diagnose what the problem was, apparently somehow that part of his intestine, I don't want to get too graphic here, got twisted and was obscured by some other organs, and they couldn't see that it was actually inflamed, the appendix. So it finally came out, but he had complications setting in already. Bottom line is he was in the hospital for 18 days for really should be just a 2 or 3 day stay with some serious complications, and he's very fortunate to be as healthy as he is. Looks great, and he's bowling well these days.
Missed the spare just then, which Gives him indigestion of sorts, I'm sure, but he'll take a 10 bucks. Nice note here today from Eleanor Long from Worcester, Massachusetts. Did I ever tell you I was from Worcester?
I've never heard that.
We've talked about the bowling alleys in Worcester and how many there were, and Candlepin bowling got its beginnings in Worcester. And we listed all of the lanes that we knew about in Worcester, and she tells me we missed a couple. There were two lanes,
or something,
two
right?
lanes in the First Baptist Church, built in 1939 when the church was built. Another mark for Zappi. 2 marks in a row, a spare inside, a strike. And he looks for some bonus money. And she says the lanes were busy up until a couple of years ago when they renovated the church and dismantled the lanes.
I wonder if they, well, if they were built in the 30s, they weren't automatic pin setters. I imagine they were still manual. I'd be curious to know.
By the end, I think they had to have been manual.
Well,
automatic, rather.
But you wonder if they ever spent the money to, the machinery is very expensive. They may never have upgraded from manual setting to mechanical.
That was a $50 shot that John Zappi thought he had all the way. I thought he had all the way, and
well, I knew he did, but I didn't
not
want to say anything.
That'll be a 10 bucks for Zappi.
So who sent that?
This is from Eleanor Long from Worcester, Massachusetts.
Eleanor,
Eleanor.
We'd be curious to know if they were automatic pin setters or if they remained manual, as they probably were originally in the 1930s.
You can call Mike at WHOB Radio in Nashua, New Hampshire, and he'll be happy to. Here's a, will it go? It wraps around the 4-pin, that piece of wood. But the 4-pin did a little dance, but still stands. Still stands. Bob Whitcomb works in manufacturing for TKT. It's a biotech company. He's single. He'll take a 10 bucks. Enjoys bike riding, and he does some fishing. Takes a yearly trip to Vegas in late summer for amusement only, as he says.
He likes to go in early September around Labor Day and make his, for amusement purposes only, wagers on the NFL season. Now, I do that every year around Super Bowl time to make my baseball wagers.
Who'd you pick this year?
Actually, I didn't go because I had my throat surgery,
that's
so
right.
I was unable to go. So
yeah, I'm sorry to hear that the throat surgery was not successful.
Thank you for those very kind words, my partner of 3 years.
Bob Whitcomb missed the head pin.
Oh.
I mentioned WHOB Radio in Nashua. Mike Morin, of course, is the morning man. Began that gig a few months ago.
Yeah, back in June.
How's it working out?
I'm having a great time. Yeah, Morin in the morning has returned.
That's a 6 bucks for Bob Whitcomb.
Got Ken Cale, the Cannonball, doing sports. You know Kenny, right?
Saw Kenny a couple weeks ago.
He is a
known
character.
Kenny for years and years and years.
Didn't realize that his family owned the Yankees, one of their farm teams in Manchester back in the
Yankees.
60s.
Absolutely.
Kenny pointed out because of the great money drain of having that franchise, he was unable to attend college, which is a true story. I don't know if he ever did go afterwards, but his family put everything into it, and it ultimately did not succeed, unfortunately.
John Zappi looking for 2 in a row after that strike in the 5th frame. He's got 2 strikes, 3 marks in the first string. Looking for another mark right here. The 5-pin stands. The 5-pin falls. John Zappi seems to be in the same groove he was in last week in the match with Rich Lottie.
400 even for John Zappi. Also winning the extra $50 for having the highest string last week, which is a new add-on this year in the money purses from everybody here at Leda Lanes.
Well, Whitcomb threw it right in the pocket, but he leaves the 5 and the 7.
Hard to believe it's been a couple years, actually back in May of '98 since we saw Bob Whitcomb. He was the #1 seed, defeated by #3 seed Jay Leach, 394 to 378.
Bob takes the 5-pin. The 7-pin remains. And it's a 9 bucks for Bob Whitcomb. 53 half. What are you doing for lunch today? If you're in the area near Leda Lanes, on Amherst Street in Nashua, why not head over to Pizza Hut? They have a terrific all-you-can-eat luncheon buffet served Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 1. It features a salad bar and breadsticks and all sorts of Pizza Hut goodies. It's Pizza Hut on Amherst Street in Nashua for the all-you-can-eat luncheon buffet Monday through Friday from 11:30 to 1, 313 Amherst Street, right near Leda Lanes in Nashua. Bob missed the spear that time. He just pulled it as soon as it left his hand. He knew it. He missed the shot. And he'll take a 10 box. All right, WNDS TV crew working here at Leda Lanes. Our director is Jim McLean, sitting in the hot seat for today's taping.
He used to be the warm-up entertainment for these shows here last year.
He's
really
moving up.
moved up.
Don't know if he's wearing a kilt or not.
I checked, and he's not, thank God.
Don Cronin's on audio. Larry Taylor is on graphics.
Now, Larry is wearing the kilt today, oddly enough.
Paul Hunter is handling video and luncheon arrangements. And our camera crew of Patrick McDougall, Kevin LaFond, and Jared Conlon, all making it possible for you to watch Candlepin Stars and Strikes from Leda Lanes.
And they're here courtesy of their local wick release programs. So we're glad they're all here.
That was a 10 box for John Zappi.
Well, he's piling up the lead like he did against Rich Lottie last week through 6. A 30-pin bulge over Bob Whitcomb.
That's another mark. Five marks in the first string.
You know, this is only John Zappi's 3rd time on television, so he's got remarkable poise for such little experience.
Bob Whitcomb's right on the head pin, but he can't catch a break. You got the 3, the 6, and the 7. How's that for a shot?
My.
Bob Whitcomb picks up the spare. Didn't need any deadwood either. The 3, 6, 7. Played it perfectly. A high single of 199 for Bob Whitcomb, as you saw. Now working on the mark. Right in the pocket. No, the 10-pin gets wiped out. He got a break.
Well, he has narrowed the gap now to about 21 pins through completed frames. He'll need the mark, though, to stay with John Zappi, who had an 8th frame spare.
2 marks in a row for Bob Whitcomb, and he answers John Zappi's mark in the 8th. We want to welcome a new sponsor to Candlepin Stars and Strikes. On WNDS TV, it's the Thompson family of dealerships, McMulkin Chevrolet, Nashua Hyundai, Nashua Mitsubishi, and Nashua Daewoo, all located in the New England Automotive Village on the Daniel Webster Highway in Nashua. That time John threw it past the head pin, and he's only able to put 4 in the spare, one of his few head pin misses this afternoon. And that's going to go right through the hole. In the match last week with Rich Lottie, John was on the head pin all afternoon. Very few head pin misses. And that will be a 9 box. He salvaged the 9, which is a good out. He is at 126 through 9. Last week he opened up with, what was it, a 146.
Yeah, 146, 124, and 130.
The 1, 7, and 10, otherwise known as the high-low jack with wood on the deck. Remember when they used to use this as a bonus shot on the old Channel 5 show? Wood rolled off.
And that would get into the $1,000 range very often.
It's kind of like the Candlepin version of Make That Spare. And an 8 box for John, and he finishes with a 134. Remember the old Make That Spare show, the 10-pin show that used to run after the fights on Friday nights?
Very vaguely.
Johnny Johnston, I think, was the host.
Of course, you're considerably older than I, so I don't think I remember that from my childhood.
Oh, they did have talking in it. I know that. Whitcomb on the spare, and he only puts 3 in it.
Talking about Bob Whitcomb going out to Vegas to place his NFL bets for the season, we should let you know that here at Leda Lanes every Sunday, NFL Sunday Game Day, you can watch 5 games at once right here in the lounge at Kegler's Den. You got the satellite all hooked up. You can come in and spend the day following our show on WNDS. Then they put the football on 5 games at once. That's a good deal. So check it out one of these coming Sundays here at Leda Lanes.
9 box for Whitcomb. He's at 104. That is a good deal. 5 games all at once. And it's a nice lounge, too, by the way.
Very nice.
Just as an afterthought.
Yep. Very spacious, very warm, hospitable.
And a 9-pin drop. He was right in the pocket. The 7-pin still stands for Whitcomb as he tries to get a little closer here at the end of the first string. He's looking at a 134 on the board from John Zappi. Nice spare for Bob Whitcomb, his 4th mark of the first string. He's at 114 plus a ball. What will it be for Whitcomb on the headpin? 114 plus 6 is 120. A 120 first string. A 14-pin lead for John Zappi as we head to string number 2 of this second match of our first ladder series on Candlepin Stars and Strikes from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Don't you dare go away. We're coming back with string number 2 on WNDS TV right after this. Bob Whitcomb will be first to bowl in the second string of our match from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. Dick Lutzk with Mike Morin and our entire WNDS TV 50 crew. We'll be reading your cards and letters during this string. We get lots of letters from you viewers. We love to hear from you, and our mailing address is Candlepin Stars and Strikes in care of WNDS TV 50 Television Place, Derry, New Hampshire 03038. I want to acknowledge a letter we got from Mrs. Vilja Melpignano. I hope I'm saying it correctly, from Milford, Massachusetts. We mentioned last week during the show that Claudia Crocker from Everett, Mass. Sent us in an article from Reminiscence magazine talking about bowling. Well, Mrs. Melpignano sent in the same article out of the same magazine.
No kidding.
So thank you very much. Nice to know you're thinking of us when you come across articles on bowling. We get newspaper clippings sent to us and magazine articles and newsletters. Anytime there's something written on bowling, you're nice enough to send it to us, and we really do appreciate it. It keeps us up on what's going on out there as Whitcomb doesn't get a break.
Yeah, we get all kinds of stuff. Somebody sent me one of Joe Ashline's old stinky bowling towels, which we quickly disposed of, but thank you very much. That one doesn't count. Ball went into the channel first, came out and took down the pin, which makes it a dead ball. Which most of you know, but we may have a few new Candlepin fans, so we'll give you the rules as we go along.
So that'll be an 8 box for Bob Whitcomb. Now John Zappi with a first string of 134. John missed the headpin again.
So it's the 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, and 8. 2 sets of double wood. Tough shot. Tried to do a wall shot with the deflection to the left, but he missed it completely.
Well, here's a challenge, Michael.
Oh, boy.
Norman Adams from Beverly, Massachusetts. That's a 9 box for John Zappi.
What's Norm want?
Well, Norm first of all asks if we recall an old match which he rolled back at Brunswick Alleys in Beverly, Massachusetts. The outcome was tied, and after 3 strings, there was a 2-box roll-off. and he was hoping we might have come across it somewhere in our historical analysis of Candlepin bowling 50 years ago. Unfortunately, Mr. Adams, I can't say that we did, but would be interested in knowing more about it. And then Mr. Adams says, I also think you should televise your own next match.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with that, and I think you feel the same way, don't you?
As I have told you before, having won last year's head-to-head competition with you rather easily, I might add.
Oh, 4 pins? 98 to 94? Yeah, you buried me, pal.
I coasted home.
You coasted home and you had to change your laundry when you got home. But you did win, and I have no further comment until we make the arrangements.
When one is the reigning champion, one gets to dictate a lot of things.
Are you folks getting as tired of hearing about this as I am?
Whitcomb with a 9-pin drop.
Talk about Worcester or something.
Have your people talk to my people. Yeah. There's a spare for Bob Whitcomb.
I have a new agent, by the way. You may have heard of him, Arliss. He'll be in touch.
I've only seen that show a couple of times. It's pretty good.
It's a scream. Yeah. It really is good. It's on HBO, so if you don't have cable, you don't have HBO. It's a story of a sports agent and some of the stuff they have to put up with their athletes, the shenanigans. And they use the actual athletes in the show, which makes it even better. Various basketball players and tennis players, and it's a great show.
Robert Wool.
Robert Wool, that's it. Who's been a stand-up comedian for many years. Now he's doing this show, Arliss.
Ooh, right on the head pin, and he couldn't get the spare.
Haven't seen any bowlers on the Arliss show yet, though.
Nine pins and 41 through 4 for Bob Whitcomb. But I do suspect that you and I will renew our head-to-head competition at some point during the course of the season.
Up on lane 34 is John Zappi now. Just ignoring you.
I gathered that. Spread eagle, but the 7-pin also goes. So you've got the 2 and the 4 on the left, the 3, the 6, and the 10 on the right, still standing.
How good is this? We get to see Gary Carrington next week for the first time in almost 3 years. Won the Tournament of Champions in our first season together, and
hit the triple strike jackpot that year.
Yeah, he did. He really did well, and then kind of dropped off the radar scope for a couple of years, and he's back.
7 box for John Zappi.
Number 2 seed Gary Carrington next week, taking on the winner of the Zappi-Whitcomb match, which you're enjoying right now.
You and I last saw Gary in Haverhill when we had our head-to-head competition, which, by the way, I won.
Guys, can you turn his mic off back in the truck? Is that possible?
But that was an interesting event at Haverhill, which we saw the kids that were going to Canada, that competition. And Gary was there along with several of the other professional bowlers that we see. And we hadn't seen Gary in quite some time, and it was nice to see him again.
Yeah.
Nice shot by John Zappi.
He holds the distinction of not only having won our Tournament of Champions, but also the Tournament of Champions on Channel 5.
So we'll go to the break on that note with John Zappi marking in the 4th frame. Zappi with the lead over Bob Whitcomb. Nearly halfway through this match, we roll on from Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire with Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. Bob Whitcomb gets ready to bowl on lane 34 at Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire. We mentioned last week, we can mention it again. It's still not too late. If you're interested in league bowling, contact your nearest Candlepin bowling establishment, and they'll be happy to set you up. There are openings on just about every level for league participation as Whitcomb throws. There it goes. It's a strike if you stay on it long enough. And Bob Whitcomb just watched it and willed it over. The strike for Whitcomb in the 5th frame. But you can call Leda Lanes, the phone number in Nashua, 603-889-4884, or call your local Candlepin bowling establishment and inquire about getting a place on a league. And there's 2 in a row for Bob Whitcomb. And again, speaking of calling Leda Lanes, roll-offs are ongoing. If you want to find yourself on television or involved in the roll-offs that put you on television, find out more about the next roll-off at Leda Lanes by calling Sean Howard or any of the people here at Leda Lanes. That's a 1 on a spare for John Zappi. You don't see that very often. The quarter Worcester.
Well, he started out his first box, and the first game was a 1 as well. So it is rare, but it does happen. And my, how the tide has changed for John Zappi, who now is at the opposite end of how things were earlier when he was in control.
Whitcomb's going after $525. 7 box for John Zappi. That's a 44.5.
Our runner-up today, $225. It's added money this year from Leda Lanes, formerly $175, now 2 1/4 for the 4th place bowler, and 3rd place is $300 now, formerly $250.
John Zappi didn't hit the head pin that time, but he has a spare opportunity with the 1 and the 3 still standing. He's been off the head pin his last couple of balls, and that time he's right on the head pin and he has a mark. Now we're looking at $525 for Bob Whitcomb.
The audience wants it to happen. Certainly no more than Bob does.
All right, hold your breath and watch Bob Whitcomb shoot for $525. Just that close. Just that close. 1 pin away.
He hit the head pin. The 7 stays. We've got a piece of wood rolling back toward the bowler.
Paul Willett, our official scorer, will go down the lane and remove it. Either that or he'll give it a little spin and head it back toward the 7 pin.
for a small kickback fee of $100.
All right, now we're looking at $50 in bonus money for Bob Whitcomb, if he can make this spare. And he did not.
That's a shame. And you know he's going to throw a strike on the next ball. Can pretty much guarantee that.
And a 9 box for Bob Whitcomb.
But 98 through 7, giving him a bit of a lead now over John Zappi.
But no bonus money given away. Oh, spread eagle right through the nose.
2 inches either way, he's got a strike.
2, 4, 7 on the left, 3, 6, 10 on the right. He'll pick up 3 and leave 3 with the 2, the 7, and the 10 still standing. And he will end up with an 8 box.
I want to mention the website here at Leda Lanes. If you'd like to check out their website. I haven't yet, just got the information today. LedaLanes.org, L-E-D-A lanes.org on your computer. I know lots of our viewers are hooked up to the internet now, so next time you're surfing, get all the information about Leda Lanes. Drop them an email if you like. You could actually, you know, Dick, they could write to us probably in care of LedaLanes.org as well.
Email your communications to us, sure. You got the 5, the 7, and the 10 with wood left on the table for John Zappi. He put 7 in his mark.
Well, what do? You go right at the 5 up the middle?
Yep. That's the only thing you can do.
You got the roadblock.
The wood in the mail in the way right there. So
problem is he's coming from the left side and the pin is angled in the same direction, which is going to make it tougher unless he caps it.
He put the 7 and the 10. Watch out, it's coming in the back door, but it's not going to get it. That's the type of thing you just have to take a shot at it and hope something happens. And that'll be a 10 box. A mark here by Zappi, and we are virtually even in the match if he can mark in this 8th frame of the 2nd string. He leaves himself a tough shot. The 1, the 3, the 6, and the 7. He just picks the 1, so he will be open in the 8th frame. It will be around a 10 or 12 pin lead. A 13 pin lead for Bob Whitcomb in the match. with 2 frames remaining in the second string.
Congratulations to Bob Whitcomb, member of the 1998 Team World Championship. That was bowled up in Bangor 2 years ago. And on his team, you'll recognize a few of these names. Craig Holbrook, who we've had on the show, Dick. And you remember the pitcher by the name of Billy Travis?
Yes, the name's familiar to me.
Played for the Brewers and the Angels.
Yeah.
He's on the team. I've seen him bowl. He's a lefty, of course. John Lang also on the team. As Bob Whitcomb spares in the 9th frame. Mike Kusha, Rich Bugnano, and Jim Powers all made up the 1998 team for Maria Sub in Situate. Congratulations. Just got this. I know it's 2 years old, but always good to acknowledge a good thing.
Whitcomb missed the head pin, but he will put 6 in the spare. The 1, the 3, the 7, and the 10. A piece of wood in front of the 10 pin. Got a shot at it.
Boy, that's where you want to hit it, too. Between the 1 and the 3. But the 1 didn't, went wrapped right around the 7 pin.
He's at 131. That's what it'll be, a 131 for Bob Whitcomb in the second string. With a 120 in the first string, a 2-string total of 251 for Bob Whitcomb. Zappi led by 14 after 1. Unless he marks, he will trail going into the 3rd.
Actually needs a couple of marks.
And could this be one? Yes, it is. The strike for John Zappi in the 8th frame, the 9th frame. We've not given away any bonus money in this match yet. Right on the head pin. Well, Zappi surrounds them all and leaves the 8 pin. The 8 pin still stands. A piece of wood next to it appears to be touching it, which means he can go either way. If he touches the wood, he's going to get it, and he's got the spare.
So a 9-pin drop here. Takes the lead.
So we're going to have an interesting, very close match after 2 strings. And John's still looking for bonus money. A strike here would give him 50 bucks. And that's what he's got. We'll give him $50 in bonus money. And he closes out with a 131. And a lead in the match of 2 pins for John Zappi as we head to the 3rd and final string of this now exciting match between John Zappi and Bob Whitcomb. We're heading down the home stretch. Don't go away. We're coming back to Leda Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire as you watch Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. John Zappi will be first to bowl in this 3rd string as Bob Whitcomb won the 2nd string 131 to 119 for Zappi. Zappi will take a 2-pin lead in the match into the 3rd string, 253 to 251. Zappi starts out with a strike.
3 out of his last 4 frames have been strikes. And the 3rd one should have been, because it was a beautiful pocket hit from the left-hand side, left the 8-pin standing. So it's been strike, strike, spare strike for John Zappi.
In the pocket again, but he'll not get 2 in a row to start out with.
He is zoned in on that pocket, the 1-2 pocket for a left-hander every time. The last 5 frames, the ball's been right there.
Tough shot here, the 6, 7, 8. Can he play it off the wall? No. No, it was the 6, 8, 10, I should have said. The 8 pin is still standing, and the 8 pin is down. Bob Whitcomb with a 131 in the 2nd string. We have a $50 bonus for the high string in the match, and thus far that's John Zappi's 134 in the 1st string. Now Whitcomb looks for some action, late action, and he has them lined up along the back row, the 7, the 8, and the 10, and wood, 4 pieces of wood laying all over the deck, and Bob walks down to survey the situation. I might even go to the right here, Michael.
Try to spin that piece of loose wood across and then hope for some kind of kickback off the left back to the 10 pin.
That's what I would do. He's not doing it that way, though.
Well, he should have listened, shouldn't he?
You never know.
Well, he'll obviously, well, not obviously go for the 10 pin, but that's what he's going to do.
And he'll take a 9 box to start out.
$225 to the runner-up today with added money from Lita Lanes this season. Our thanks to Ray Cimino for his generosity. The bowlers, I'm sure, grateful as well. Ouch, the back row plus the 5 pin.
It's almost impossible to leave those pins. If you were trying to, you couldn't do that. Gave it a shot.
The infamous 710 remains with no wood on the deck. This shot is a minor miracle if you make it without any extra wood.
And an 8 box for Bob Whitcomb. I want to acknowledge a nice note from Joseph Sims from Boston, Massachusetts. Sent us up a nice note. Joseph, thank you very much. Nice to hear from you. That time he missed the head pin, but he was not working on a mark.
Half Worcester left side. 2 and the 8 are out. Everything else still stands. Bit of a lob, but I think it was a legal shot.
Another note I want to acknowledge from Ms. Jean Chapman from Francistown, New Hampshire. Says she's watches the show every week. She and her husband.
Oh my!
Here's a nice shot. John Zappi. Big spare for John.
That was a spread eagle minus the 2 pin.
Working on the mark. Will they all go? The 6 pin wobbles, but refuses to buckle to the pressure.
A virtually impossible shot to miss with the wood right in front of it, almost touching.
3 marks and 4 boxes for John Zappi, but still no bonus money. Bob Whitcomb on the head pin. There they go. Responding to the pressure, Whitcomb buries it into the pocket and records his first mark of the 3rd string.
Took Bob a little while to work himself back into shape after an 18-day hospital stay.
Working on the strike.
Some appendicitis, as we mentioned earlier this year, which should have been a couple days, turned out to be 18. Worked himself back into shape by bike riding, which is his first love, or well, I'm going to guess bowling probably is, but one of his favorite activities. He looks great. He's in good shape, bowling well, averaging 124 this year, still with a 199 high single.
There's another spare. On top of the strike, Bob Whitcomb with a couple of marks in a row. Both bowlers will be looking for bonus money when we come back to Lita Lanes. In Nashua, New Hampshire, we'll go to the break. Tight match heading down the stretch. John Zappi and Bob Whitcomb slugging it out. Who's going to come out on top? Don't go away. We're coming back to Lita Lanes in Nashua, New Hampshire on Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV. John Zappi will be first to bowl. 5th frame, 3rd string. I had John working on a couple of marks. I was incorrect. He had a 10 box in the 3rd frame, and he's working on a mark here in the 4th. And he puts a spread eagle onto that mark.
Well, he made this a couple of minutes ago without the 2 pin in the mix for a 10 in the 3rd frame.
Not going to make it this time.
And this is what he did last time. Well, he made this just 2 frames ago. You don't want to make a habit of it, but if you got it, you might as well make it.
And he almost
so close.
picked it up. Give him a 9 box in the 5th frame.
I think we have some mail from Kenneth DeVoe, who lives in Danville, New Hampshire. Has a question, why don't we see my favorite bowler anymore? In my opinion, the great Peter Flynn. And Kenneth, you couldn't be more right. One of the best bowlers, truly, of the 80s and early 90s. Unfortunately, for those that didn't hear, Peter Flynn had some health difficulties. I would say probably 6-7 years ago. Had a brain aneurysm. Recovered from that, and I believe had another one or some kind of a complication. Had to quit competitive bowling because of a variety of medications and other difficulties. Anyway, he and his wife Debbie and their sons have moved somewhere down south, and Peter no longer involved in Candlepin bowling. But I'm sure that if he still were, we would definitely be seeing him on the show. He dominated the game like few ever really have. Great left-hander with he was a tall, thin guy, and really had a terrific stroke.
We were told he was up to visit this summer.
Yeah.
Here's a strike for Bob Whitcomb. 3 marks in a row. That's $50 in bonus money for Bob Whitcomb.
Finally, some bonus money. We've been a little bit lean on that these past few weeks.
Now Bob working on 3 marks in a row in the pocket.
Very, very close match. We'll add another $25 to the 50 if he can get this spare. He's had a little tough time today with the single pin spares, though.
Not that time.
Yep.
$75 in bonus money for Bob Whitcomb, and more importantly, he's taken the lead in the match. A 13-pin lead in the match. Both bowlers working on marks. Zappi leaves himself a tough shot. The 4 and the 10.
He'd rather have the loose wood over on the 4-pin instead of the 10.
He's got to cut that shot. He's not going to make it. He takes 1. So Bob Whitcomb has put on a rush here. It'll be a 10 box for John Zappi. Whitcomb has struck like lightning with 4 marks in a row in frames 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the 3rd string. And that time Zappi missed the head pin, but got a pretty good fall.
Cannot afford not to make it, though.
John Zappi needs this mark. Missed it. He hit the head pin and didn't pick up the spare. Hit it too clean, too full. 10 box for Zappi, and that could be costly. He's at 100 through 8, and now Bob Whitcomb working on 4 marks in a row. Strike, spare, strike, spare.
Gary Carrington waits in the wings for today's winner. Next week's week 3 in our first ladder series of the year.
He was right on the head pin, but he took it right through the middle. The spread eagle +1. You've got the 9 pin behind the 3 pin on the right side. 3, 6, 9, 10 on the right. 2, 4, 7 on the left.
So this match will stay a little closer than it appeared here just 2 minutes ago. Still 5 pins on the deck.
It'll be an 8 box for Bob Whitcomb. Six-pin advantage, box to box, for Whitcomb. And he's got a tough shot here. That's the 7 and the 9. Piece of wood is outside. Is it outside the
Generally
area?
right around the shadow of the deck light is now. I would say it is. It's definitely out, and it's going to roll into the right channel anyway. So.
Our scorer Paul Willett is down there looking at it and watching it roll into the channel. This is the 7 and the 9. Virtually impossible unless you get a freak bounce off the back screen. And it's not going to happen that time.
A lot of people would go for the 7 pin and try for some kind of a wall deflection. Bobby went for the 9 instead.
That'll be a 9 box.
Look at this, 5 pins.
5 pins separating them. A 5-pin lead for Whitcomb with 2 boxes to go. Doesn't get much tighter than this. Zappi needs a mark. 2 marks to put some pressure on Whitcomb. On the head pin. Tough shot coming up. This is the 2, the 4, the 5, and the 7.
Should we have a tie, we should point out it's a 2-frame roll-off. And, of course, these 2 guys tied to get into this tournament and had a 1-game roll-off.
Nice spare for John Zappi. Clutch shot for Zappi. And he played it perfectly.
These guys are as evenly matched as they come, as we've proven to you in the way they were seated in the tournament. And it was a very close roll-off 1-string match to see who would be in 3rd or who would be in 4th in the ladder.
On the spares, a strike. How's that for pressure bowling by John Zappi? Answering the call. Now looking for some bonus money if he can strike here or put a spare in the strike.
Yeah, there still is room for 2 more strikes.
Chance for bonus money here.
And the high string of the day so far. He'll exceed his 134 that he had in the first game.
140. 3rd string and a clutch finish for John Zappi. Whitcomb needs 36 pins. Right through the head pin.
That's a killer.
Came up with a big shot right on the nose, right on the head pin, but spread eagle.
He'll need multiple strikes now in the 10th frame. And he needs to pin very well here.
Takes the 3 on the right.
Held the ball just a little bit long for a bit of a lob, but it was well behind the lob line.
And a 9. 2 strikes and a 7. He needs a double strike and a 7.
That's it. Well, he could get a spare. No, he does need 2 strikes right off the bat here.
26 pins. Will this be one? It will not. And John Zappi will advance with a terrific finish. John Zappi comes from behind. Spare in the last frame on a great shot by Whitcomb, but it's going to be too little too late.
Yeah, he'll lose by less than 10 pins. It's a decent fill here. Boy, it looked like he had the world by the tail, didn't it?
Sure did. In the middle of the string, 4 marks in a row. You thought he was in control. Zappi finished with the big flourish. And a 7 and a final of 133 for Whitcomb. A 3-string total of 384, 393 to 384, a 9-pin win for John Zappi over Bob Whitcomb. We're coming back to meet the boulders when we return to Leda Lanes in Nashua for Candlepin Stars and Strikes on WNDS TV.